All right, so trigger warning for discussions of sexual assault and all things Illyana and Limbo. So, this is episode 205 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the premier Kitty Pryde Lockheed Magic podcast. And today we're going to review Ages of Revelation titles Undeadpool 2, Expatriate X-Men 2, X-Vengers 2, and Cloak OR Dagger 2, and very quickly, Battleworld 3. But before all that, we got to get serious with Age of Revelation Infinity 4. And I haven't read all of Age of Revelation Infinity 4. Heck, I don't even know this series was even happening. Issue 4 tells the story of how Illyana Rasputina, our beloved magic, the M in Shadow, the SNFWM herself, died in the Age of Revelation. Her death was referenced in Age of Revelation 0. Then we saw the Dark Child Amazing X-Men Volume 3 and heard about her in Expatriate X-Men. Writer Tim Seeley and artist Philip Seve are the creative team to bring us the story. There's two comic book characters I just rather never read. They both share a very specific trait. One is Sabretooth and the other is Sim. Sim tormented 6-year-old Ileana, and it is very implied there are some sexual assault involved. Not some, but just constant. To the point where we see Sim throw 6-year-old Ileana onto the ground and then drag her off into the shadows saying, I hate it when you don't smile. And we see this during Inferno. We and the New Mutants. Magic turns Rain's head as she shouldn't have to see what happens next. Sim is the absolute worst. For a reason, I don't despise Belasco as much as I do Sim, probably because all the assault appears to be caused by Sim and Belasco is clearly allowing it. Sim tightens my stomach, whereas Sabretooth and Belasco I just rather not deal with. The panel that's being shared the most is Darkchild, clearly magic as we know her is dead, on her hands and knees, groveling before Sim, saying, Glorious Lord and Master Sim, how grateful I am that you sate my pathetic needs. And that's just gross. There are other panels, just as three demons tormenting adultish Ilyana, saying, Little thing, tasty and soft, so clean, which is also just gross. And another one states, It seems my investment has finally paid off. And it's just like, all right, everybody. Now, this all reads like issue 5 is going to be Ilyana coming back and getting her revenge, but we know she dies in the story, and sure, Darkchild is ruling Providence, but does the road to get there have to be paved this way? Now, once again, I haven't read the comic fully, but since it's an Infinity comic, those are usually not that long, so I feel like the summary I've seen and the screen caps I've read is the full comic. I have learned recently that Maria Hill dies, and so this is sort of like, well, she killed Maria Hill. She deserves everything she gets after this, which is like, all right, I guess. So that's my criticism. Now, I only learned of this as my Tuesday morning. All I kept hearing about was how comic book fans were sending death threats to the comic creators, and that is never okay. It just isn't. It took until I got home to really look into it. No one was referencing the creator names or which character, which to me meant it was a DC property or a female writer I wasn't familiar with. As I'm aware, those writers seem to get the worst of all comic criticism. So I was pretty surprised to learn that there was even an Age of Infinity or Age of Revelation Infinity comic, and that we were getting Magic's death told in this format instead of a format that should see print, as she's a pretty big deal within the Age of Revelation. I want to be clear that Infinity comics do matter, and it's great that creators are given this opportunity to get their work seen and read. And if hugely successful, we they see print. Heck, I'm still waiting for a lovable Loki to get printed. We can't be sending death threats to creators or to anyone. I just feel like this has took a lot of steam out of my enthusiasm for this event, like it's built on rotten bones. Plus, there are like 50 issues to this event and digital issues now too. And there are some top tier comics, a bunch of mid tier, and a few on the bottom. And we still have an entire month of this before Shadows of Tomorrow, and then Age of Revelation would join the Age of X-Men and the Ages of Apocalypse and the Age of X before it, where you don't have to worry about it. So, and it's also comics, like give it 3 to 6 months and either you forget about it or it never gets referenced again. It's just we can't be sending death threats, everybody. I mean, we should be able to agree on that. And even if it's a small percentage, it's still not great. As a guy who works at a grocery store, I do worry sometimes about snide comments or someone's poor attitude and then, them coming back into the grocery store and just being like, oh, like you hear about robberies all the time. And so, just try not to do anything to provoke such reactions. And it's just, can we not? Like, it's not a great story. It should be ignored. It should be criticized, but we shouldn't be doxing anybody to send very specific death threats. Okay, let's see if we can get through the rest of these comics. So, Undeadpool 2 takes Fearless to Santa Claus, Indiana, a city I'm sure McFoley loves. Cable arrives and his TO virus has taken over more of his body and mind. I like how this feels like the conclusion of the Cable story. He was always meant to stop Apocalypse, so once the timeline made Doug revelation of the threat, he didn't know what to do with himself. Cable is trying his best to maintain his sanity, but he is slipping. Cable wants Fearless to join him in his X-Force era as the New Mutants era is over. Undeadpool wants Fearless to join the Expatriate X-Men, which this story takes place before that series, so that's why this series is coming before that one in this episode. The two fight as, of course, they do, and Fearless uses her telekinesis secondary mutation power to separate them. Undeadpool thought she only had the basic telepath package, but she has this upgrade, and she seems unsure about it. I suspect she really knows what her powers are, but it isn't sharing with him or us. Um, just yet. Issue ends with Miss Marvel and Bronze seeing Undeadpool approach, and they are not thrilled to see the traitor. Expatriate X-Men 2 issue opens up with Bronze feeding Colossus, who is rusted and has a mechanic arm and clearly not doing okay. He wakes up from a nightmare involving Katya. Bronze misses Kitty too, but thinks about her all the time. I know we're going to be missing her as well as we've gotten January and February solicitations and hints of March and still no Kitty Pryde reference. Official appearances and a funeral to worry about in Storm Mightiest Mutant 1. I'm very concerned, yo. Colossus's rusty side's on the side of his mechanical arm, so his left side, so clearly something bad happened there. Interesting to note that in Ages of X-Men, Colossus was missing the bottom half of his arm as well, one of his arms, so clearly future Colossuses just have this going for him. Captain Melee had sex with Lyrebird, which surprises me as that's not the vibe I got from her, but we barely know the students of Exceptional X-Men. He's being very obnoxious about it, being very clingy. They dock at a port, but Shinobi Shaw has taken over the territory and wants to change the agreement, which upsets Melee. He takes Lyrebird hostage. Melee's done with him, so gives him up pretty easily, which just shows how dark this future is. Lyrebird shows off his mutant power. It isn't sound mimicky, but a great fire explosion, so that's different from what I thought. Everyone boards the ship again as they have to figure out how to get Lyrebird to Mystique. Miss Marvel doesn't love that Melee's taking this brash decisions, though Melee is the captain now, so she should be making all the choices, especially the hard ones. But Miss Marvel wanted to put it to a vote. Colossus was the tiebreaker, but Melee still makes her own decision against the majority of three. That's a suspicion that Lyrebird is a mole for the government. More on that with the next series, which is fun that there's a domino effect happening here. But it does matter. The goal was to bring him to Mystique, so who cares if his intel's good and the mission is to transport him? During the argument, Bronze has an aside where she's missing Axel, so he's definitely not with them, but maybe he was the one Melee was making a side deal with in the first issue. Is I was wrong about it being Colossus. I wonder if he's with Sophie, as hinted in the Hellfire Gala or the Hellfire Vigil. Melee references Fearless attacking them in Deadpool on Deadpool 3, so odd that the shipping for this is all over the place, but it wouldn't matter once these stories exist in trades or in 2 months from now when everyone can read them at whatever pace they choose. Melee whispers to Lyrebird to promise never to come back, and he does, so she faces him through the bottom of the ship. Miss Marvel doesn't love this and tries to get him back, but notices there's something wrong at the bottom of the ship. The ship is being run on 3K technology, which I'm sure is a necessary evil, but maybe Melee's working with 3K, but I'm not sure how they can be surviving this type of future. Riff rifts them to Providence, where they're confronted by a giant demon of Darkchilds. X-Vengers 2. I'm so excited to for Ashley Allen writing a Danny Moonstar miniseries. Hopefully one of the variant covers will have magic on it, but I'll be buying the series to support both Allen and Moonstar. So I'm going to this comic with a higher level of enthusiasm and grace. Hawkeye is upset that they don't have time to give Scott Lang a funeral or anyone else. I like how much Sunspot wants to make a bigger deal of this New Mutants reunion, but no one has time for it. Danny and Sam need to meet with Doug. I mean, Revelation. Sunspot's team are called the Seraphim, which plays into Revelation's holier than thou attitude. Shang-Chi destroys the Kree ship. Revelation also doesn't have time for the New Mutants reunion. There's something wrong with the Technarchy mixing with the X virus. Vision proves he can shut down one instance of the corruption, but it nearly wipes him out. Revelation forces Vision to reboot the entire new strain, killing Vision, but fixing the problem. And Vision's my favorite Avenger, so it was nice to see him and Danny work together for an issue and a half. Revelation believes this is another trick from the government and will confront President Sam Wilson, but Danny makes a deal since he killed Vision that Danny has 3 hours to talk to President Wilson before Revelation does something drastic. Actually, she wanted 24 hours, but Revelation says she gets three, which feels like this world is widening when it should be narrowing, but I guess that plays into the read what appeals to you nature of the crossover. Cloak or Dagger 2. I really like Aya, Cloak and Dagger's daughter. I love her plush bear with his own little cloak. I would buy this plush. I really wanted Jeff the Landshark plush, the one where he's biting an X symbol. One of their cop friends is down, being mutated into a big bat-like creature. Dagger swaps out with Cloak. Fenris is there causing trouble and explosions. Cloak takes a bad hit, bad enough that Dagger felt all of it. Issue into Dagger and Ayla coming out to help Cloak, who will see how long Cloak and Dagger can exist in the world war together at the same time. And yes, Ayla brought her cloak bear with her. Um, I do, as a big Chrono Trigger fan, which 2026 is the 30th anniversary of that game, which I can't believe it's been 30 years since falling in love with it. But um, I know they're releasing a orchestra CD as their first thing they're announcing. So hopefully we get at least a PS PlayStation port of the game because I would love to just play it again and get the trophies. And but yeah, a Ayla. Now that I'm like, wait, it's spelled the same way. Ayla. I always go Ayla, but yeah, how else would you pronounce it? Ah, maybe it'll give us a Final Fantasy VII remake style game of that, which I would buy all versions of that. And then lastly, Battleworld 3, Days of Future Past Storm barely does anything in this issue besides creating some fog at Wasp's succession. They fight off Starbrand, mostly by Kurt Busiek's Warbird, who's very unsure of herself. I do like Hank Pym telling her that she'll have so much success in the future. That's nice of him, very reassuring. Korvac shows up at the end saying he is ready to fight them off. We get the debut of that Spider Venom, who will be appearing in Venom 252. So get excited. This series is making me not want to read at 2099 The End. I pre-ordered the first issue, but I think I'm ready to just eBay the rest of them. Next week's comics, we were supposed to get Wonder Man in December, so no tie-ins there. I'll be reviewing my last of my 43rd issue numbers series at the end of December. January will start my 44 issue retrospective series for both January and February, so get excited for that. This project really helps me remember how old I am, as I don't really think of it too often. We get the final issues of Age of Revelation, Amazing X-Men 3, Binary 3, Laura Kinney Sabretooth 3. Then we get Hulk Smash Everything 1. We'll see who shows up to be smashed. Spider-Girl 7, just check to see if any X content shows up. Ultimate Universe 2 Years In, to see if Magic shows up as she did for 1 year in. The preview pages did not show her or the her on the creator list. Venom 252, this new spider themed Venom. So, get excited. And then Wiccan Witches Road 1 for those who are Wiccan inclined. Wiccan inclined. And so current Age of Revelation rankings, the top tier be Book of Revelation 2, Amazing X-Men 2, Expatriate X-Men 2, and Unbreakable X-Men 2. The mid tier be Iron and Frost 2, but the Last Wolverine 2, Binary 2, Deadpool 2, Omega Kids 2, X-Vengers 2, Overture, Laura Kinney Saber 2, Radioactive Spider-Man 2, and Cloak or Dagger 2. And then we get the lower tier of Sinister Six 2, Rogue Storm 2, Age of Revelation 0, Longshots 2, War of Revelation, and then finally Age of Revelation Infinity 4. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. Thanks for listening or watching for those on YouTube. And you can follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitter at Jacko SII, the podcast at SNFWM. And thank you again, everyone, and I will talk to you next time. All right, everyone. Bye.